When are you actually going to read the unredacted version of the Mueller report?
Well, here's the thing, and this is why I think the Justice Department's position is so untenable. They're taking the position that you cannot indict a sitting president, but we are not going to show you fully the evidence in Congress you would need to determine whether an impeachment is warranted unless you begin an impeachment without knowing. That cannot be the position of the Department of Justice. Right now, they want to show certain redacted portions to certain members, myself included. Well, you know, that may be fine as far as my understanding of the situation, but in terms of the broader congressional responsibility, how am I supposed to advise my colleagues on issues like impeachment if they're not able to see the evidence? So I think that's completely untenable. And the fact that the Attorney General would represent it as confirmation that he would be as transparent as law and policy will allow, and yet come before Congress and say, I'm actually not going to do that. I could go to court, I could join you and ask for the grand jury material to be made available to you, but I don't want to do that. To me, that is a betrayal of what he promised to do. But of course, coupled with the misrepresentations he has made about the contents of the report, we now have great insights into Mr. Barr that we didn't have before. And I have to say, I think he's doing a singular disservice to the country on the most important investigation that we've had in a generation.
You've had an opportunity to read this report in depth and also reflect on your own interviews as chairman of the Intelligence Committee. Looking back at some of the witnesses that have come through, starting with Erik Prince, you've suggested in the past that he may have lied to your committee. After reading the report, reflecting, do you believe that Erik Prince lied to your committee?
I do believe that there is very strong evidence that he willingly misled the committee and made false statements to the committee, and later today we'll be making a criminal referral to the Justice Department.
You're going to make a criminal referral
we are going to make
on Erik Prince.
You know, I think the evidence is so weighty that the Justice Department needs to consider this. His testimony, which I can discuss because it is public record now, was that his meeting in the Seychelles with this Russian banker was purely by chance. He just happened to be there, and his hosts suggested he just happened to go to the Seychelles for about a day and have a chance meeting with this Russian banker. Well, we know from the Mueller report now that that was not a chance meeting, that he had preparatory materials about him before he left, that he had discussions about it with Mr. Bannon before he left. We know there were communications after he returned. He was also asked whether he was attempting to establish a back channel for the Trump transition or campaign, which he also denied, and it's clear from the Mueller report that that was false and misleading. So in very material ways, I think the evidence strongly suggests that he willingly misled our committee, and the Justice Department needs to consider whether it can make a prosecutable case. Now, one of the issues I'm sure the Justice Department is going to have to determine is some of that information was provided in a proffer session. And whether that precludes the Justice Department from using that information will depend on the
Well, you still can't lie to Congress regardless of the session, the type of session.
Well, you can't lie to Congress, you're absolutely right. But if the evidence that his testimony was false was given to the Justice Department by Prince under the condition that it not be used against him, then being able to prove the case may be problematic. But that's something the Justice Department will need to carefully scrutinize. And of course, the other problem is that somehow, mysteriously, magically, the communications between Mr. Prince and Mr. Bannon have apparently fled their devices. And so
do you believe Steve Bannon has been candid with your committee?
Well, when we have the opportunity to release his transcripts, you will see that Mr. Bannon refused to answer almost all of our questions. And when we pressed to hold him in contempt, the GOP members of our committee would not go forward. They did not want to cross him to that degree. And so there were whole periods of time in which Mr. Bannon refused to answer questions. And when we asked whether he was asserting some privilege, he merely said that he was not answering the questions because the White House asked him not to.
Could you